The grand hall thrummed with a vibrant pulse, as if the very stones beneath the feet of the gathered nobles were humming with anticipation. Golden pillars stretched skyward, each adorned with intricate carvings that caught the sunlight streaming through the colossal stained glass window. A kaleidoscope of jeweled tones painted fractured patterns across the polished marble floor, which gleamed underfoot like a mirror. Soft murmurs wound their way through the assembly, whispers weaving around opulent velvet tapestries heavy with the faded glory of ages past. The faint scent of polished wood mingled with that of spiced wine and freshly cut lilies, a sharp contrast to the tense undercurrent vibrating just beneath the surface. At the far end, under the cathedral height window, the announcer stepped forward, his posture regal, robes swirling with the subtle sheen of enchantment. Clearing his throat, he projected his voice with a thunderous clarity that silenced even the smallest rustle in the audience. "The winner of this tournament," he declared, voice reverberating like a bell through the hall, "shall gain the house champion title, honors and influence doubling overnight, a future forge in magic and might." A ripple ran through the crowd. Some nobles exchanged calculating glances, their smiles tight and their fingers flexing involuntarily near concealed spell foci. Power promised much, but power won only by a few. Among them, one figure sat unmoving. The faintest tremor betrayed the storm inside her. Her eyes, sharp and wary, scanned the room, not out of idle curiosity, but calculated vigilance. Her heart hammered fiercely, a caged bird desperate for release beneath a mask of composed elegance. This tournament could be my single chance to alter the course of my life. Her thoughts raced, each heartbeat drumming louder in her ears. Or it could be the final nail in the coffin of the failed nulliness they all think I am. She swallowed hard, steadying herself. Fingers curled tightly in her lap, clenched so firmly that a pale shimmer, a faint bluish magic, sparked and flickered like the flickering flame of a midnight candle. It danced just beyond the notice of most, but she knew a few sharp eyes caught the subtle arcing glow. From across the hall, a rival noble's sneer sliced through the quiet like a dagger. "Let's see if the infamous failed villainess can even cast a proper spell," he taunted, voice dripping with scorn, meant as much for the whispering courtiers as for her alone. Her lips twitched, not a full smile, but the kind of quiet confidence that comes from knowing strength hidden beneath a battered reputation. They don't know what I'm capable of yet, she thought, with iron resolve, eyes glinting beneath long lashes. Before her, a delicate holographic window shimmered into existence, flickering with an iridescent glow like liquid crystal. The swirling golden script unfolded, displaying the stringent tournament rules that would govern every move. Spell usage will be judged on power, control, and creativity. Mere raw destruction is a path to disgrace. All magical abilities are strictly supervised. Reckless or forbidden spells will invite penalties or disqualification. Noble status is volatile. Victories and defeats here will ripple across the court's political tapestry, altering alliances and fortunes. She let her gaze drift slowly across the crowd, noting the sharply dressed nobles, some riding waves of cocky confidence, their chests puffed out as if the title was already theirs. Others masked shaky, fragile egos beneath carefully rehearsed smiles and sharp eyes. In this hall, surrounded by inherited wealth and whispered ambitions, the battlefield was as much social and political as it was magical. The twilight draped the secluded garden like a soft indigo veil, cooling the day's heat into a refreshing chill. Ancient runes etched deep into the cobblestones beneath her knees glowed faintly, pale blue lights like stars captured in stone, casting an ethereal aura that made the shadows dance with quiet magic. A gentle mist curled low around her ankles, whispering among the branches of surrounding trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and moss. The delicate rustle of leaves sounded like whispered encouragements. She knelt, breath shallow but steady, fingertips tracing the intricate sigils carved into the worn stone floor. The runes pulsed faintly beneath her touch, as if responding to a silent communication. Focus, channel the mana calmly, just like I read in the ancient texts, she muttered softly, voice barely audible above the cool breeze brushing the petals that had drifted to the ground. Her hand flickered suddenly, and a spark of raw magic leapt wildly from her palm, scorching a delicate fractal pattern into the stone. The scent of burnt ozone stung her nostrils. Ah, too volatile again. Frustration bubbled bitterly beneath her skin. Her arms trembled, exhaustion clawing at her muscles, but bitterness quickly turned to dogged determination. She bit her lip, forcing her trembling hands to weave slower, more deliberate movements. Carefully, she recalled the mana synchronization technique, a legendary dance of harmonizing one's own inner energy with the ambient magic which permeated the world. It was a rare skill, difficult to master, the kind only whispered about in secret tomes. Her fingers moved with a newfound patience, tracing flowing arcs through the cool air. The mist around her seemed to lean in expectantly, the glowing runes at her touch pulsing softly in approval. Suddenly, a burst of shimmering flame bloomed between her palms, not the reckless blaze from before, but a steady and hypnotic light, like a tiny captive star held gently in her hands. Its warmth flushed her face with a golden glow, painting her cheeks and nose with soft light. Yes, that's it. She exhaled a shaky breath, eyes sparkling with triumph mingled with relief. Slowly, she allowed her lungs to reclaim calm rhythm. Her body relaxed. The aura around her hummed evenly, each mote of magic swaying to the steady beat of her focused will. This was no accident. This was the slow awakening of a new strength, the quiet birth of control born from grit. The tranquil garden and its warm glow faded like a curtain drawing closed, replaced by a stark vision of a cold chamber drenched in shadows. The air felt sharp and thin, soaked in dampness and sorrow. Outside a narrow window, relentless rain tapped its morose rhythm against worn stone, blurring the world beyond into a smear of gray. She stood alone, desperately alone, forgotten, weak, and unloved. Her mind's eye conjured the fragile girl she'd been, trembling, desperate, haunted by every cruel word and every cold shoulder. The sting of each betrayal carved invisible scars deeper than any blade could. I was hated, used, discarded. Memories bit deep, a quiet ache twisting in her chest like a persistent thorn. Fear and pain had been her constant companions. But beneath it all, a resolute ember burned. Not this time. Her gaze hardened, shadows falling beneath her lashes like armor forged in silent resolve. This time, I will rewrite my fate, not driven by bitter revenge, but by a thirst for true power and something far more elusive, love born of genuine strength. A whisper lingered at the edges of her thoughts, the siren song of forbidden magic, dark curses once woven into her very mana flow, which had doomed her past attempts and shackled her abilities. She had vowed to leave those dangerous paths behind. I deserve a new path, a better path. And this time, she would walk it, unyielding, unashamed, on her own terms. The shadows retreated as dawn broke quietly over her mind, carrying her resolve back into the present. The arena garden basked under a resplendent afternoon sun. Solid columns framed the battleground like ancient sentinels, their marble surfaces gleaming where light kissed stone. The scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the faint metallic tang of magical energy thrumming through the heated air. Spectators leaned forward on polished platforms, their breaths caught, eyes sparkling with expectation and judgment. Opposite her, the rival noble lounged with confident ease, a smug grin playing on his lips like a predatory cat savoring a late meal. "Let's see if your training has brought you anything other than luck," he sneered, eyes glinting cruelly as the sun caught sharp angles of his ornate armor. She met his gaze steadily, a quiet smile tugging the corners of her mouth. "Luck has nothing to do with it," she said softly but firmly, voice ringing clear over the murmurs. Strategy does. No sooner had the words left her lips than the duel erupted. Blazing bolts of scorching fire ripped through the air, twisting gusts of wind swirling like blades aimed to cut and confuse. Each offensive strike crackled with raw, untamed power, a dangerous storm she had learned to expect. She danced backward, feet barely touching the ground, her movements a fluid blend of grace and precision honed by desperation and hope alike. The soft rustle of her robes was swallowed by the crackling magic around her. Her defense was subtle, skillful utility spells cast with nimble fingers working quickly, shimmering veils of light flickering around her figure like ethereal silk, a gentle warmth that blurred the edges of her form and blurred her movements to the eye. Her eyes narrowed, calculating. Then, like a shooting star streaking across twilight skies, a sudden flare burst from her palm, brilliant, blinding light that exploded in a flash. A perfectly timed feint designed to snatch her opponent's focus. His gaze snapped instinctively toward the glowing flare, lips curling in what looked like a premature victory. "Did you really think I'd show all my cards so early?" she teased silently, a spark of playful confidence lighting her eyes. Before he could gather himself, glowing chains surged from her hands, a breathtaking spectacle of ethereal magic, glowing softly yet burning with undeniable power. The chains wrapped around him with fluid precision, pulsating as they tightened. The binding spell hummed with deadly grace, weaving through his mana flow like a masterful trap, draining his energy steadily, his movements slowing as the well-crafted snare took hold. The crowd gasped, the shock cutting through the tense silence. Their eyes flashed with surprise, admiration, and, in some corners, quiet skepticism. Above their heads, a translucent UI flimmer floated like a ghost. Pop-ups of impressed, surprised, and a few skeptical faces flickered by, revealing the court's subtle reactions. The rival faltered, breaths ragged and trembling, power drained, his once smug expression now edged with raw apprehension. She stood steady in place, calm and poised, her chest rising and falling with even breaths that seemed to fill the charred space between them. Victory was not just a claim, it was hers to own. A warm, golden spotlight bathed the podium as she stepped forward, the murmurs of the crowd swelling into applause. Yet the claps were a mix, the polite applause of nobles bound by etiquette, and the thinly veiled contempt of those unwilling to yet fully acknowledge her rise. Her fingers curled tightly around the gleaming amulet, placed reverently in her hands, its intricate runes pulsing in soft, rhythmic waves that seemed to echo her own heartbeat. The amulet, symbol of the house champion, emitted a quiet, humming energy that promised to amplify her magical abilities, though beneath that soothing glow was a faint, strange vibration, a whisper of unknown power and lurking unease. She lifted her gaze, eyes scanning the sea of faces that swirled with congratulations, envy, and curiosity. And then she saw it, a shadow flickering in the darker fringes of the crowd. A figure cloaked in subtle mystery, eyes narrowed to brilliant slits, lips curved in a smirk that was almost a smirk, secretive, dangerous, incomprehensibly amused. Quiet words, barely more than a breath, seemed to drift to her very ear, despite the cacophony. "The true game begins now." Her own voice was barely a whisper, vaulting out from the tight grip of suspicion and challenge. "Who are you really after?" The weight of the amulet seemed heavier in her palm, charged with silent promise and coming storms. The tournament was over, but the real dance, the complex, dangerous waltz of power, love, and hidden secrets, had only just begun.